Interestingly, I think at this point it is just noise. So even though we had some positive news this week regarding Mexico, markets were fairly sanguine about it. International markets were fairly sanguine about it.
Although we do see our markets hitting new highs.
Our markets are hitting new highs. I think it's just a reflection, however, that the big whale here is China. That's really what matters. This is all a lead up to a potential deal or no deal with China. That's what's going to have the biggest market impact. I think that's what investors are waiting for.
Are you saying that assuming that there's going to be a NAFTA deal, that somehow these three countries are going to get together? Is that kind of a given in the markets at this point?
I think it is. I think we're seeing a little bit of movement on the Canadian side, a little bit more of a positive reaction than maybe what we would have originally thought from the Mexican deal. This does put an enormous amount of pressure on Canada, on the foreign minister, on Trudeau. I think it's better likely than not that we get a deal done.
I'm asking that just because if we don't get a deal done by Friday, which is our self-imposed deadline, if we want Congress to have 90 days to consider this before the Mexican president leaves office, correct. If we don't get a deal by Friday, you're talking about a Labor Day weekend, a long holiday weekend. If we don't get a deal done, is there some potential risk for things kind of falling off a cliff, at least temporarily?
I think there is, although it is self-imposed, it is real. These are political considerations that do actually matter. This could really push the timeline back, and pushing the timeline back is going to raise the uncertainty and certainly take any of the momentum that the market did have regarding this Mexican deal kind of out of the sails.
Lindsey, having said that, the economy overall is incredibly strong, and that continues to be the story, the economy here in the United States. How do you measure what's happening in the United States? How do you add up what's happening around the globe? And what are your expectations for the beginning of next year?
Well, that's certainly a lot to get in. I do think the economy is on solid footing, but I would hesitate to say that it's on strong. Now, absolutely, second quarter growth was above trend, and we're likely to see that second round GDP number confirm that story that we did see after waning momentum for the previous 6 months, a market pickup in the second quarter. But when we parse through some of those details, we still see some question marks about whether or not this is a new upward trajectory for the economy or if this was a one-off data point. And I do suspect the latter when we start to talk about the consumer heavily reliant on drawing down savings, ramping up credit, as opposed to more organic support from an improvement in underlying wage gains. And business investment, while still positive, is beginning to lose momentum even through that second quarter number. And particularly when we look at the housing market, outright weakness now for back-to-back quarters with sales in the red, it does suggest returning to trend growth rate and a question about whether or not we are able to maintain even that more modest 2-ish% GDP pace as we head towards the end of the year and into 2019.
Jim, is the market anticipating that?
I think it is. I think what we're seeing is the market is pricing in slower growth. I mean, it's not too surprising given the rate of growth that we've seen so far. We have an unusual time in the markets right now, right? We have GDP with a 4 handle, we have unemployment with a 3 handle, and we still have the 10-year with a 2 handle. These things typically do not add up and don't add up together. But I think as you look out, as it relates to earnings, as it relates to terminal rate of Fed funds, net-net, the market is pricing in a slowdown from here.